everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about what we read in the month of October. So welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lee and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. Or in the case of today's video, really good books. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read personally throughout the month of October, as well as the read-alouds that we read with our kids. Now we homeschool 3 kids, so we have some read-alouds that we do as part of our school time, plus we also really like to listen to books and read together in the evenings. This video is in collaboration with Lindsay at Bytes of Memory, so I'm going to link her channel down below. After you're done watching this video, make sure you go over and say hi and check out what she and her family read throughout the month of October. So let's get started. So I read about 3 books on my own this month, and the first one was called The Day the World Came to Town. Now this book was on my fall reading list. I'm going to link that video down below. This is a book about a small town in Newfoundland where a bunch of planes were rerouted on 9/11. I have had a huge fascination with some of the untold stories from 9/11 this year, and so there have been a lot of books that have been on my reading list. If you've seen any of these videos, you know that that's been a theme in my reading. This book is the story of what happened to those passengers who were in the air after the terrorist attacks in New York City. There was lots of people traveling that day, and all the planes needed to be rerouted because the U.S. had a no-fly zone. It was completely closed off. Nobody could even fly over the United States, so all these planes had to be rerouted, and it became sort of an emergency situation because you had planes in the air that, number one, either didn't know what was happening, or number 2, did but couldn't get where they were going, and number 3, then where do you go? What do you do with all these people who are in the air who are a potential threat to national security? So this small town takes in all these people who have been rerouted there, and it's about how this town just embraces these passengers, because we're talking nearly 1,000 people all of a sudden stranded. They had no idea how long they were going to be there, had no idea how they were going to get home, what they were going to do, where they were going to even spend the night. And this town completely comes out in full force and embraces them and makes them a part of their family. So you follow along in this book several characters, if you will, where they came from, what they were doing, where they were flying to in the air, sort of their backstory, and then what happened to them when they landed and how this town embraced them. It's one of those stories that you hear after 9/11 that is so completely countercultural to the events of that day, and how people just came out in full force and all their humanness and all their humanity and all their love for each other, and just took care of each other that day. It was a very quick page turner for me because I became so engrossed in these people's stories, and they became so real. You forget that there was real people in some very unusual circumstances that day. So I would highly, highly recommend that one. The second book that I read in October was called Everyday Brave. Now this was a review book, so I'm going to link my full review down below for you. But basically this book follows several women, either named or unnamed in the Bible, as well as I think there is 30 current day stories that are included in this book as well. And it kind of explores the topic of what is brave. Are you brave? What is bravery? What does that look like? Because I think a lot of us would say we're not brave. We're just doing the next thing. Which is true in many cases, but there is an element of bravery there that we don't often recognize. So I might say, are you brave? And it completely changes the question when I say, has the Lord asked you to do brave things? And that's what this book is all about, is brave things that everyday women have been asked to do, and they thought they were just doing the next thing. Whereas when they look back and they reflect, they see how the Lord has made them brave, taken them through hard things, and used their bravery as a testament to His strength and to His goodness. I'm going to link my full review down below. It's one of those, I kind of fell in the middle of the line. I love the topic. I think it's a great thing to put out there because we all have a story that can inspire others. So if that's something that you're looking for, is just some inspiration in your everyday life, I think this one might be for you. The third book I read this month I actually have in front of me. It is called The Timepiece by Beverly Lewis. This is the second book in a series. The first one was called The Tinderbox, which I did review, and I will link my review for the first book down below. This was just one that I picked up from the library because I had to find out how the story ended. We left off on the Tinderpiece where a girl named Adeline is showing up, and she was Ernest's long-lost English daughter. She has been raised English, whereas Ernest converted to the Amish faith. He didn't know that she even existed. Her mother hid her pregnancy and hid this child from him until she was about 20. She goes and finds him and his family. And it's about her exploration of faith, his learning to be brave in many circumstances, and to share his life with his newfound daughter, how they embrace her, what does it mean to be family, and how do you make that work when you're incorporating somebody that you don't know, that doesn't share the same faith. All in all, I thought it was an okay book. It was an easy read, very predictable. I felt that the first book was much better. It had a little bit more of a climax. There was a little bit more tension. There was a little bit more unknown. All in all, the timepiece was pretty predictable. It was nice to finish off the story and see what happened as she came back into their lives and became a part of their community, but very kind of formulaic, I suppose. But if you want to know how the story ends up, you have to pick up the second one. As far as read alouds this month, I have two books to share with you. The first is a classic, and that is Where the Red Fern Grows. We read this book as part of our language arts curriculum this past month. I read it with my 6th grader and my 3rd grader, and I have to say it completely tore me apart. I haven't read this book since I was about 10, and I knew what was going to happen, but I forgot how emotional it was. They spend 18 chapters of this book making you love these dogs, and I am not a dog person, but by the end of the 18th chapter, I loved Old Dan and Little Ann. They were so special, and the bond that they had with Billy was so unique and so heartwarming and moving. This little boy, he goes and he is in the Great Depression, and he earns this money for these 2 little dogs, and it's about just this unique relationship that they have together, and ultimately where that takes him and the life lessons that he learns from this. It's a coming-of-age story. I still would recommend it. My one word of warning, because it had been a really long time since I read this book, there are a few chapters that are pretty graphic as far as gore, which is really weird to say for books because I don't think of gore in books, but especially children's books, but there were a couple of chapters that were pretty graphic, and I had to edit them a little bit for my 3rd grader. My 6th grader, she could handle it, but she was probably right on the edge of being able to handle some of that. As I read aloud, I did do some editing for my 3rd grader. And the final book that we read aloud with the kids was A Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis. If you guys have been watching my videos the last couple months, you know that we have been working our way through the Chronicles of Narnia books, and we just finished A Horse and His Boy, which means that we have listened to, I think that's either 3 or 4, and we've started Prince Caspian. They are still going strong. They still love them. I kind of thought that by this point in the series, maybe they would be ready to take a little break and do something else, but they are loving listening to these stories again. I have a 6th and a 3rd grader, and I have to say that they have held the attention of both of these kids. Now, they're both big readers and they love to read, but C.S. Lewis's work has really captured their attention and their imagination, and they're actually really enjoying this series. They're getting way more out of it than I ever did at their age. So that's all the books that we read throughout the month of October. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you're reading or what you're reading with your kids. Also, don't forget to check out Lindsay's channel. I'm going to link that down below, as well as a few other videos about Some of the things that I've mentioned today are fall reading list, etc., etc. So if you love good books, make sure you check out that description box. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to hit that subscription button down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.